Article 30 grants the following rights to minorities, whether religious or linguistic. All minorities shall have the right to establish and administer educational institutions of their choice. The compensation amounts fixed by the state for the compulsory acquisition of any property of a minority educational institution shall not restrict or abrogate the right guaranteed to him. This provision was added by Article 40, added by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978 to protect the right of minorities. In this regard, the Act deleted the right to property as a fundamental right, Article 31. In granting aid, the state shall not discriminate against any educational institution managed by a minority. The protection under Article 30 confined only to minorities, religious or linguistic, and does not extend to any section of citizen under Article 29. Therefore, there is no specific classification of minorities. However, the term minority has not been defined anywhere in the Constitution. In the absence of the basic rules, every individual would be insecure simply because they would not know what members of a group could do to each other, who could claim rights over what. Any group will need some basic rules that are publicly promulgated and known to all the members of that group to achieve a minimal degree of coordination. But these rules must not only to be known, they must also be enforceable. If citizens have no assume that of others will follow these rules, they will themselves has no reason to follow these rules. Saying that rules are legally enforceable, giving an assurance to everybody that other will follow these. For if they do not do so, they will be punished. The function of a constitution is to provide a set of basic rules that allow for minimal coordination among the members of the society. The constitution specifies the basic location of the power in a society. It decides who get to decide what the laws will be. In principles, this question, who get to decide, can be answered in many ways. In monarchical constitution, a monarch decide. In somewhat constitution like the old Soviet Union, one single party was given the power to decide what in democratic coordinations constitutions. Broadly speaking, the people get to decide. A function of the constitution is to set some limits on what a government can impose on its citizens. And these limitations are fundamental in the sense that the government may never uh, trespass uh, trespass them. Constitutions limit the power of government in many ways. The most common way of limiting the power of government is to specify certain fundamental rights that all of us possess as citizens and which no government can ever be allowed to violate. The exact content and interpretation of these rights vary from the constitution to constitution, but most constitutions will protect a basic cluster of rights. Citizens will be protected from being arrested arbitrarily and for no reason. This is one basic limitation upon the government power of government. Citizens will normally have right to some basic liberties, to freedom of speech and freedom of conscience, freedom of association, freedom of conduct a trade or a business, etc. Most of the older communities constitutions, most of the older constitution limited themselves largely to locating decision making power and settling some limits to government power. But many 20th century constitution, of which the Indian constitution is the finest example, and also provide an enabling framework for the government to do certain positive things to express the aspirations and goals of society. The Indian constitution enables the government to take positive welfare measures, some of which are legally enforceable. The directive principles of the state policy also enjoin the government to fulfill certain aspirations of the people. The Constitution has divided the legislative power with regard to preventive detention between the Parliament and the state legislature. The Parliament has exclusive authority to make laws to preventive detention for reasons connected with the defense, foreign affairs, and security of the state. Both the Parliament as well as the state legislature can concurrently make a law of preventive detention for reasons connected with the security of a state, maintenance of a public order, and the maintenance of supplies and services essential to the community. Article 22 grants protection to persons who are arrested or detained under a preventive detention law. This protection is available to both citizens as well as aliens, and including the following: the detention of a person cannot exceed 3 months unless a advisory board reports sufficient cause for the extended detention. The board is to consist of a judge of a high court. The ground of detention should be communicated to the detainee. However, the fact considered to be against the public interest and not be resolved. Second, the detainee should be afforded an opportunity to make a representation against the detention order. According to the Citizenship Act of 1955, those born in India or on or after 3rd December 2004 are considered citizen of India only if both of their parents are citizen of India, or one of whose parent is a citizen of India and other is not an illegal migrant at the time of their birth. The citizen of foreign diplomats posted in India and enemy aliens cannot acquire Indian citizenship by birth. If he is a citizen of any country, he has to undertake a renounce the citizenship of that country in the event of his application for Indian citizenship being accepted. For example, Indian Constitution provides for only a single citizenship, thus that is the Indian citizenship. The Supreme Court has held that if the government fails to consult UPSC in matter of personal management, the aggrieved public servant has no remedy in a court. In other words, the court held that any irregularity in consultation with the UPSC or acting without consultation does not invalidate the decision of the government. Thus, the provision is directly or not mandatory. The court has also held that a selection by the UPSC does not confer any right to the post upon the candidate. Success in the examination does not confer indefeasible right to for appointment unless the government department of personnel training is satisfied. There may be an inquiry with regard to the character and incidents of check suitability to all respects for appointments to the service. However, the government is to act fairly and without arbitration, without arbitrariness or maleficence. The Right to Information Act 2005 provides for the creation of not only the Central Information Commission but also a State Information Commission at the state level. There is no provision for creation of state. There is no provision for creation of information commissioners at the district level. The State Information Commission is a high-powered independent body, whereas which inter alia looks into the complaints made to it and decides the appeals. It entitles it entertains complaints and appeals pertaining to offices, financial institutions, public sector undertakings, etc., under the concerned state government. The Constituent Assembly, in addition to making the Constitution, it had performed the function of Legislative Assembly. It enacted the ordinary laws. It also adopted the national anthem on January 24, 1950, and national flag on July 22, 1947. It elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the first president of India on January 24, 1950. Hence, all the statements are correct. In all, the Constitutional Assembly had in all, the Constituent Assembly had 11 sessions over 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. The the constitution makers had gone through the constitutions of about 60 countries, and draft constitution was considered for 114 days. On January 24, 1950, the Constituent Assembly had its final session. It however does not end. The continued as the Provisional Parliament of India from January 26, 1950 till the formation of the new Parliament after the first general election in 1951-52. A state public service commission consists of a chairman and other members appointed by the governor of the state. Constitution does not specify the strength of the commission but has left the matter to the discretion of the governor. Further, no qualifications are prescribed for the commission's membership except that one half of the members of the commission should be such persons who have held office for at least 10 years either under the government of India or under the government of the state of a state. And the constitution also authorizes the governor to determine the conditions of a service of chairman and his members of the commission. All the chairman and members of an SPSC are appointed by the governor, and they can be removed only by the president and not by the governor. The president can remove them on the same ground and in the same manner as he can remove a chairman or a member of the UPSC. Central Information Commission CIC submit an annual report to the central government, which places the report before each house of the parliament. National Human Rights Commission NHRC submits its annual or special report to the central government and to the state governments concerned. These reports are laid before respective legislatures along with a memorandum of action taken on the recommendations of the commission and reasons for non-acceptance of any such recommendations. Among the giving bodies, it is the only CVC which present its annual report to the president. After a prolonged popular agitation and death of Poti Sri Mullu a congressperson of standing after after a 56 days hunger strike for the cause. The government of India was forced to create the first linguistic state known as Andhra state by separating the Telugu speaking people from Madras state in October 1953. In 1966, the state of Punjab was bifurcated to create Haryana, the 17th state of the Indian Union after the Union Territory of the Chandigarh. After the large-scale reorganization of the state in 1956, the political map of India underwent continuous changes due to the pressure of the people, popular agitations, and political conditions. In 1960, the bilingual state of Bombay was divided into two separate states, Maharashtra and Marathi, Maharashtra for Marathi speaking people and Gujarat for Gujarati speaking people. Till 1947, Sikkim was an Indian princely state ruled by Chogyal. In 1947, after the lapse of British paramountcy, Sikkim became a protectorate of India, whereby the Indian government assumed responsibility for the defense, external affairs, and the communication of Sikkim. In 1974, Sikkim expressed its desires for their association with India. Consequently, the 36th Constitutional Amendment Act 1975 was enacted to make Sikkim a full-fledged state of the Indian Union, the 22nd state.